Well, here we are back again. The paintwork on the top probably hasn't quite gone off properly yet. So I don't want to work around it. I want to start the fit out immediately, but I don't want to go touching this. It's only been 24 hours or something that it's been painted. I want it to go off for 3 or 4 days before we start working around it. But down here, this cream coloured gear leg has been painted for at least a week, so I can work around that. I'm going to start with the undercarriage. I want to put the undercarriage, well, actually I want to put the undercarriage together properly. So step one will be to service the wheel bearings. Okay, so let's go over to the bench here and have a look what I'm up to. Okay, what we're going to do, we're going to take one wheel bearing out at a time. You might like to take all of them out at the same time. I don't suggest it, but you might. To do that, we just simply need to take a circlip out. I don't know if you can see the circlip here. There's a circlip holds a couple of retaining pieces in. We just flip it out with a smaller screwdriver I've got without going to instrument stuff. And there it is, simple circlip. And put it in our takeaway container. Then we've got this shim piece, which is just a piece of stainless steel. It's got old grease all over it. Put that in there as well. Got a piece of felt, which is we're not going to clean it up, we're going to put it aside. And then we have another piece of stainless shim material. And that can go in the tray. And here's what we're trying to do. This is what we're trying to pull out and clean up and inspect. Okay, we will need to take all the old grease off it. And I just used an old, this was a new piece of rag 10 minutes ago, but it's just an old piece of rag. Wipe off the heavy duty grease. This grease is quite hard. It's been in here for, well, it's been in here for at least 15 years. I don't know whether it came from the factory this way or whether I did it. I don't remember. I don't remember what I did last week, much less 15 years ago. But anyway, there we go. We'll get the bulk of the grease off. We can run our little screwdriver around here and dig out the old grease. Yeah. I keep changing this piece of rag out. I'll change it again in a second. Yeah, but all the old grease out. There's more. Then it goes into the container. Throw this away. And I've got a bag of new ones here. I've got a fairly new one here. So we can wipe off the excess out of the piece that stays in the wheel. We're not changing that unless there's something wrong with it. I'm not changing any of it, in fact, unless there's something wrong with them. And since they've never fired a shot in anger, I don't expect there to be anything wrong with any of them. Okay, so we just wipe off the excess. I don't want to put any cleaners or anything in there. I don't want to run the risk of solvent getting into the tube. I'm assuming this has got a tube in it. Matter of fact, I'm pretty sure it does. But that's reasonably clean. Then we can inspect that cone to see if it's got any marks on it. Don't use the light of the reflection of the light. Looks pretty good to me. Matter of fact, it looks excellent. Then we need a little bit of kerosene. We call it kerosene. I don't know, in the UK I think you call it paraffin or something, I don't know. It's kerosene. And we wash those parts in it. Childproof, see? In Australia it's blue, so it's 100 low lead, but this is not 100 low lead, it's kerosene from the supermarket. I've got a little little brass brush, which I use to clean the pieces with. Clean off the excess grease. Can you see what I'm doing? We can move this up here somewhere. Just be extra careful not to spill it into the tyre. And there we go, that's nice and clean. And we can set that aside and dry it out later. Same with the other piece. That's a bit dirty on one side. Different people have got different ideas on how to do this. This is how I do it. You want to do it some other way? Knock yourself out. The circlip might as well be clean now as well. And that can be set aside to dry. Now the bearing, it's going to take a little bit more effort, but we clean it around that line, around the where between the inner and the cage. This thing's called a cage on the outside. Same on the other side, on the back, or on the big side. It's tapered bearing. Let it soak in the kerosene for a while. That made a bit of a mess of the tyre. Now we can inspect the rollers as well, make sure they, it's very windy here today. Make sure the rollers are not losing any chrome or anything like that, that they're not damaged, and they can be damaged. If you're, I assume you're looking at bearings that have been in service, of course they can be damaged. And there we go. We can use a degreaser. Where are we? There somewhere. This can's just about empty, but I've got a new one. Spray it into the bearing. Yeah, let's give that one a miss. Right there. Up. Try and turn the bearings, the little rollers. Look at that, beautiful. Looks like I bought one. So anyway, we can get our reasonably clean rag and dry things off. These two spaces for starters. There's one. And there's the other one. Beautiful. The circlip. Now, this next bit's the tricky bit. See, I'm not very good at it. It's called juggling the lid, or juggle this lid and put on it. There we go. Right, that's clean. The bearing's clean. The bearing's clean, but it's not dry yet. What we can do get our air hose. Now it's fairly important that we get rid of the degreaser and the kerosene and all the rest of it out of the bearing. You don't want to try and put grease in this while it's still got solvent in it. It'll just wreck the grease. Now, it turns freely. Yeah. I've got to tell you, the one thing you don't ever do is this, because it'll get up to 97 million RPM and then take off and go straight through whatever's in front of it. But that's all we need to do. That's clean, it's dry. It looks pretty good. The rollers that I've looked at all look good. They've got no marks on them or anything like that. Now we've got to fill that up with grease. Now there's fancy machines that you can get. It goes in a cup and another cup goes on the top and there's a grease nipple and you can pump it up. Yeah, right. If you're doing 1,000 of these a day, you might want to invest in one of those machines. I just use simple, straightforward grease. This one's marine application grease. Oh, but I've got disc brakes and the car yard, you know, the car place says you're supposed to use this other grease. Well, knock yourself out. Since your airplane isn't going at, 250 kilometres an hour around a racetrack and slamming on the brakes every corner, there's a fair chance that bearing doesn't get to the same temperature. I think it's more important to have a marine application grease. This is just me, which tends to reject water, because in your airplane application you're going to go like Billy O down the runway and the bearing's going to get hot and hot and hot, and then you get into the sky and the bearing's going to cool down, and it's going to suck in moisture, suck in air, moist air. Then you land again, it gets hot and it does these cycles and it sucks moisture in. So you're more likely to get corrosion on these bearings. So a marine application grease, in my opinion, is a better way to go. These bearings don't work hard. They work hard for 20 seconds and then you're off. If your flight instructor was halfway decent instructor, he would have whacked you every time you slammed on the brakes. Because aeroplane brakes you don't need to use them most of the time. Unless you need to use it, you don't use it. And your instructor would be getting cranky if you were using the brakes or riding the brakes or taxiing with the brakes on, heels on the floor, you know the drill, come on. So these little bearings cop almost no load. Okay, yeah, I'm guilty as well. Some of my landings are a bit heavy. We all do that from time to time. That's not going to damage the bearing too much. Mind you, you are spinning the wheel up from nothing to, thousands of RPM in about 3 seconds flat. Now that bearing goes in there. It's pretty good. What I'm going to do is I'm going to fill the void between the bearing and the first spacer. Just a little bit of grease on my steel spatula ruler. I don't like this ruler very much, so it gets these sort of jobs. My good ruler, it's like Mum's good scissors. Don't use the good scissors. No, your good ruler's the same. But anyhow, there we go. Fill it up with grease. It probably doesn't need this step, but it's going to get it. The grease will find its own level where it wants to be. But it's got some, what it has got is it's got some spare capacity now. Now that grease, I'm not going to put back in there. That grease can go on probably the old piece of rag in the rubbish bin that's under the desk here, under the table. Right. Now if you're paying attention, when it came apart, you would see that the first thing was a spacer, then the felt ring or seal, then the other spacer. These are dry now and clean. Then the last thing, we'll put the lid back on the grease before it gets flies in it or whatever. The last thing was the circlip. Hard to pick stuff up with gloves on. That goes in, winds around. The other end goes more or less in. Like that. Come on. There it goes. Then you just turn it a little bit to make sure that it's all the way into the circlip groove. Doesn't want to go that way. Beautiful. That's home. Now we can take off the excess grease. Where's my beautiful rule? There we go. That's one bearing done. Get rid of the grease, don't put it back in the bottle. Now, what are we up to? I haven't shut the camera off at all, so that took whatever, less than 10 minutes I guess. And I won't edit it, I'll put it out just exactly how it is now. We can turn this over and do the other one. I'm not going to go through the pain of doing the other one. You go back and watch the first one over again, it'll be exactly the same. All right, I wanted to put the wheels on next, but if you have a look, the green tie-down strap that ties the two legs together is over the axle. And of course the wheel needs to go over the axle as well. So step one has to be to get that green tie-down strap off. The only way I can do that is to put the bungees back on. So I wasn't going to bother recording this because we've talked about the bungees a few times. But anyway, I'll leave you set up and you can watch me putting the bungees on. Right, here's the bungees here, or the first bungee. This end has to go over that bolt. And it's got under a fair bit of strain right now, but it's still got to go a fair bit further. Like so. Another one. Okay, can't get any traction. One more. Without scraping all the paint off. Might need one more. I think that's not quite far enough. No, one more. Don't rip the paint off. Almost. One more. Maybe not. Right. Now, maybe. There we go. Simple as that. Sort of. Now this is the fun bit, letting the pressure off. Come on. Like that. That's not too bad. Only got a little bit of gravel rash on the paintwork. Oh. And then try to get the tie down strap off. There we go. Wow. Beautiful. Well, as you saw, we've got one bungee on each gear leg. I'll fit another one in the next day or two. And the third one we might leave as a spare for now. The wheels are on. Wheel bearings are adjusted. The axle nut's been split pinned on. We're going frontwards. Next work session, I'll work on making sure the tail spring's connected properly. It's on, but not quite properly yet. Another 10 minutes work there. All right, here we are back again. The main undercarriage legs have been put on properly. I've got two bungees installed on each side and they're installed properly, never to come off again, well, certainly not in the short term. Two bungees are probably enough to hold the weight of the aeroplane, but I want to see how it goes when we taxi, when we're landing, how it copes. There's a third bungee on there that I can install if I want to, otherwise it'll stay on there strapped in place with a couple of cable ties, just so that it is ready to go if one of the other bungees happens to break. So staying on the theme of undercarriage, we'll come down here and do the back, do the tail wheel. This tail wheel, you know, we we already in the previous part of the video we saw the wheel bearings being repacked. Well, I think the wheel bearings in this tail wheel are not real flash either. They're in need of grease, and they've never had it. This is the microphone. Yeah, they sound a bit lumpy. They don't sound all that happy. Actually, sounding better than they did earlier, but they've been sitting for. This is, the aeroplane's been sitting around for 15 years. So we'll see how we go anyway. I'll take the tail wheel off. In fact, you can lubricate the tail wheel. There is a grease nipple over this side. There's a bearing on each side of the tail wheel, and that grease nipple puts grease in the void between the two bearings, and hopefully the grease will come out into the bearings. We'll check that out and see what it looks like. This is the tail wheel casters, they all sort of caster. You don't want them to do what the wonky shopping trolley does at the supermarket. But so it's got caster. The wheel is aft of this pivot point, so it will caster and cause the aeroplane hopefully to go straight, more or less. It's also unlockable. It's full swivelling tail wheel is what it is. So if these springs connect to the rudder, and if we put in a whole bunch of rudder, a lot of rudder, we can unlock them. That's unlocked now. The tail wheel will go wherever it feels like. And to lock it back in, we just turn it, it clicks in, and now when we turn the rudder, we also turn the tail wheel. But if we unlock it, the tail wheel can swivel all the way around. We can go like crazy on the rudder and nothing will happen. Really good feature to push the aeroplane back into the hangar. Without this feature, the aeroplane is terrible to ground handle. So anyway, this particular tail wheel is held on with a couple of Allen key screws, or Allen head screws. The axle really, the axle really just sits in there, held in by these two Allen head screws, or cap screws if you prefer. So let's take the cap screws out. No, we don't need to take them out altogether, we just need to loosen them off a little bit. There, and there. Like that. And hopefully that axle is free to move now. Of course, it might not be. How about we take the screws right out? Just fold those springs up out of the way. You won't be able to see a thing otherwise. Right. Not going to come out. Alright, I've just got a bucking bar to give a little bit of weight to the tail fork. Oh yeah, I just didn't have enough horsepower to press it. And I probably still don't have. Let's push it back the other way. particularly want to come out, it will. There we go. I'll try and give this a little tap through. It's got the axle coming out this side now. Still don't want to come. Fantastic. This is just a socket. Could have been a bit bigger. There's the axle out a little bit further. And there it is. Almost. There's the axle. It's pretty simple. Matter of fact, it's very simple. And it looks like it's full of grease, which we'll clean that out in a minute. And the tail wheel should come out. Oh, the socket. Now, of course the socket's in the way. Special socket extraction tool. There you go, look at that. We just simply got some spacers to space the tail wheel into position. There it is. Okay. Well, maybe it's just a matter of greasing the tail wheel. There's also, while we're on the subject of greasing, let's see if we can turn this around a bit. There's a grease nipple right here, if you can see my finger, which you probably can't. Probably still can't, but anyway. Right here there's a grease nipple which greases the fork. You don't want stiction in this. You know, you kick the rudder and it goes there and then it stays there, and that's a bad thing. Unless you particularly want to go around in circles. But yeah, there we are. Yeah, that I don't really want to try and take these bearings out, but I will grease them up and see what happens. That's the bearing. Okay. Oh well. Let's have a look at the grease gun and see what we can talk about there. It's beautiful. Yeah, that's pretty good. But like I say, you put grease in this grease nipple, it goes into the bit between this bearing and this bearing, fills that space up, and then the only way out is to come past the bearings to get out, and that'll free them up. Alrighty. Here's our tail wheel with our grease nipple. I want to make sure that it's nice and clean around the grease nipple. You don't want to drive dirt and crud into your bearings. In this particular case, we're going to slip the axle back in because we want that hole along the axle filled so that the grease that I'm about to put in there goes into the bearings and it doesn't just squirt out the side here. So we'll put the axle back in. Yeah, the axle's a reasonable fit on the bearings. Yeah. And then we'll try and put some grease in there. Can you see that? Yeah, you can. I'm just using my small grease gun, which has marine grease in it. That's what I use for wheel bearings. Now, just a little tiny bit of a heads up on grease guns. This thing will put out even this little tiny grease gun will put out a couple of thousand psi. A lot of pressure, a hell of a lot of pressure. It'll slip onto the grease nipple. I haven't tried this, but it'll slip onto the grease nipple fairly easily, or it won't slip on there at all because it's the wrong size. Okay. All right, I have another grease gun that can do that job. Or we try and pour grease in here and hopefully it doesn't come out the other side, which is probably why this thing's full of grease in the first place. Yeah, we can put that halfway through, something like that. This is a pretty dinky way to do things, and we can pour some grease in there. Yeah, there's our grease going in, all right. Hopefully not coming out the other side. Although I don't know. Might have been. I will get the correct grease gun and have another go at this later. But yeah, that will get into the bearing, and just for giggles, I'll put some in this side as well. It's probably pouring out the back like there's no tomorrow. Oh, wasn't. Okay. Yeah, I'll put this back together with the axle. This is probably why the axle had grease inside it in the first place. You probably can't see that, but there is grease inside there. Oh, that feels better. Yeah, let's put it back together and see what it sounds like. But it certainly feels a lot better. But before we do that, we'll just grease this grease nipple because there's something I want to show you. Yeah, what we're trying to do is grease the bearings and the shaft here in the full swiveling tail wheel. So we cleaned the grease nipple. Yeah, nice and clean. It's easy enough to clip it on. Yeah, anybody can do that. Just push it and it goes on. Look at that, beautiful. And we give it a couple of squirts and see where the grease comes out. And like I say, this will do a couple of thousand PSI, so. It will go. We'll just unlock the tail wheel and give the fork a bit of a swivel so that we get grease coming out all over the place. And that's very free. But yeah, grease guns will put out a tremendous amount of pressure. Now, here's the bit I wanted to show. How the hell do we get the grease gun back off the grease nipple? Oh, that's easy. You just turn this black bit and unscrew it. The jaws inside the actual attachment will actually release, and you pull it off. Well, in fact, no, that's not how you do it. What you do is you use a twisting motion like this and pulling towards me at the same time. And a bit bigger, and off it comes. No stress, no strain, no nothing. It just comes off. Yeah, so if you didn't already know that, then that's the 20-cent tip for the day. And then we just wipe off the excess grease, which there should be lots, because I gave it a few squirts around there. And it actually looks like the grease I just squirted in, so. And around there. And of course, if you get it wrong, the grease all comes off, flicks up and goes all over the rudder. But that feels pretty good. There it is. It'll unlock. It'll lock in and turn. Beautiful. Okay, so all we've got to do is put that tail wheel back on. I'll put it the same way. The grease nipple was over this side, so I'll just put it in that way. But there were a couple of spacer washers. These just look like cheapo washers from the hardware store. That's probably because that's what they are. But obviously this gap in the fork was a bit bigger than it needed to be, so these washers will take up that space. These are all sort of similar. There'll be different variations on how they go together and how they're manufactured, but they'll sort of do the same trick if they're full swiveling ones. Not all of them are full swiveling. That's not a very good thing. It makes putting the aeroplane in the hangar, as soon as you try and push it backwards, is not a good thing at all. They don't like going backwards. And the wheel, of course, the wheel won't full swivel, so it only goes from about there to there. And as soon as you try pushing it backwards, you're going to go over this way, whether you like it or not, or that way towards the camera. So yeah, don't fall for the old, oh, this one's a lot cheaper. There's a reason for that. There we go. Yeah, there's a 1/4 inch gap here or whatever. About 2 washers worth. And just get those washers in. Maybe, maybe not. What's going on here? Yeah, there we go. Push the axle through the washers, through the fork, maybe through the fork. Oh yeah, we're not quite lined up properly. There we go. Through the fork. Come on. Oh, that sounds a bit better. Get the axle about in the middle. Pretty good, and we didn't get grease all over ourselves for a change. That's about right, that's about right. Let's see if it, can you pick an improvement? I think it's better. And of course, I will grease it some more when I get the correct grease gun. I've got a correct grease gun, I just can't remember where it is. That's it. We just put the two cap screws back in to hold the axle. What I want to do is just put a little bit of Loctite 222 on there, or one of the weaker grades of Loctite. I need to be able to get them back out again to do this job again. This will be a job that's normally done on an annual, and yeah, I don't need them locked in there with super locking Loctite that I'll never be able to get apart again without using oxyacetylene. So anyway, I'll do that, throw them back together, and that's from the fuselage down, finished. Yeah, that's all I need to do on the undercarriage. I do need to put the brakes back on the main wheels, but the brakes are a separate item. We'll go through bleeding them and that sort of thing when I get to do that job. I may do it next, I may not. I may do something else. Let's see how we go. While we're down the back here, there's just, I want to get these rudder cables sorted out. The rudder cable comes here, if you can see my hand, through a fair lead, along here and out through the side of the fuselage. I can put that through there now, just to make sure that it's not tangled around anything else. And I'll just simply take the opportunity to do it. I don't intend connecting it up or anything like that yet, but it doesn't need to be on the inside of the fuselage. It actually needs to be on the outside. So I'll just take it apart. Like that, maybe. Maybe not. Maybe I'll leave it together and bring it through the slit in the side of the fuselage. I don't know if you can see what I'm doing, you probably can't. My hand's probably blocking what I'm doing. There's the... There it is, piece of cake. Look at that. Now I just put it back together again with the clevis pin and the split pin. I don't know. I can't see if you can see me or not, but that's another job out of the way. At least it's on the right, it's on the correct side of the fuselage now. I already did the other one, and I thought, oh, well, what the hell? I might as well explain what I'm doing. So there we go. Come on. There. And that'll go and sit down the side. That's go completely through to the rudder pedal, and so's that one. Everything's in the right place. Nothing's tangled or anything, so they're happy to go. That was simple as that. It's only a few seconds. I've also brought this red cable. This is the trim cable, up and out, because it actually fits. I'll move you back so you can see what's going on. That trim cable actually sits about here somewhere, comes through a fairing here about there, and then turns and goes back down to the trim tab. That's all. I don't want to do anything with it just yet. I just got it out because when the aeroplane was being painted and everything, it was curled up and living on the inside of the aeroplane. So we'll get it out ready to go when I put the horizontal stabilizer on.